Hello again. My name is William Stewart, co-founder of Teleios. We're going through the book of 1 Peter, verse by verse. What a great study and a great book. The Apostle Peter talks so much about Christ and our salvation, the Christian walk. He goes back and forth pretty quickly in different passages between these two types of teachings, Christ versus our Christian walk. Right now we're finishing up a section in 1 Peter 2, verses 19 and 20 today, talking about our Christian walk and our obedience primarily to civil servants in the government over us, and the nature of how we should behave towards them. And he's directing much of his conversation here to disobedient recipients of the letter, which are in northern Asia Minor. This was a pretty rural area of the Roman Empire at that time, in the first century, and they seemed to have a pretty heavy population of Jews. But interestingly, the church seems to be pretty immature by Peter's comments, and there was an element in the church that tended to cause problems for the civil administrators, and we're not really sure what that is. So this may be because, and I've mentioned several times, that particularly in Galatia, was full of migrants several centuries before from Celtic France all the way through to what is now modern Turkey, and they were basically barbarians, though they had slowly become civilized into Roman ways, and perhaps this was part of the problem. But he's saying, if you're going to suffer because of righteousness. In verse 19, he's saying today, for this is trustworthy in the King James. Really, the word here is grace, charis, a very important word in the Greek because it's by grace we receive salvation from God. In other verses, otherwise a free gift, unmerited favor, but also can mean thankfulness or pleasure. And in this case, I think he's saying and this is grace for a man of conscience towards God, enduring suffering wrongly. I think it's a little bit difficult to interpret here. Is God meaning, or Paul meaning power or a gift to suffer wrongly because you've done something good or lived a righteous life? It's probably in context meaning more favor. It's favor of God. God views this favorably that you've done this, as opposed to verse 20, where it says, what's the big deal basically if you've suffered for your faults? Otherwise, if you've done wrong and suffer for it, then you really should expect it. And how it's only the glory to God and worthwhile to God if you've lived a righteous life and suffer for this righteous life and have presented yourself faithful as his working servant. And this, of course, also is a good testimony to others. So he's telling them to then take that patiently and for the glory of God in verse 20. So that really brings up or ties in or wraps up this passage between verses 13 and 20 about suffering for righteousness' sake. And we don't really know how the recipients of the letter did suffer in terms of either stress or potential physical harm. But Peter does recognize it and realizes that they need to make sure it's for a good cause, and reminding them and encouraging them, this goes to God's glory. He mentions this several times throughout the book, so it seemed to be an issue with the people to whom he's writing in Northern Asia Minor. So thank you for joining me today. We get into a very interesting verse next time about Christ and his sufferings for us. So he changes back from the Christian walk to talking about our salvation. Join me then, and thank you for tuning in to this video today. Bye-bye.